Hi, good evening. Thank you very much to the Architectural League for the recognition. My friends from Mexico and Rafael Gamo, the photographer of all the pictures that you will see at my presentation. Thank you for the introduction. I would like to begin picturing Mexico's situation as a country, as a culture, and as a society, because I think that the work at my office, it's a clear perspective of what we get and what we are, and I always like to work thinking about the people, my clients, the budgets, and the situation of what we are living. I think that our work, it's a very community thing, and we try to work constantly thinking about all these matters. To understand that, I would like to introduce or to talk about things like our culture is a binding, it's a mix. We are a society that it's the result of two different civilizations. I think that to understand our country, you need to understand where or how we get here. This Diego Rivera's pictures shows the difficult mix of cultures that we get. Sometimes we are a clash of two civilizations, and sometimes we are the mixture of two great heritages. Our society, it's also complex. I think that our society has a huge contrast, a social and an economic contrast that generates negative and positive issues. And sometimes I imagine that this situation brings or give us the inspiration to our architecture. Our cities right now obviously are the result of these cultures, this again contrast and clash, and now you can see the downtown Mexico and Reforma. You can see the contrast between the past and the present. And also you can see the segregation that our economy it's doing. This is not a Photoshop. This is a real picture of a rich neighborhood and a poor one next to each other. And these are the things that we live every day in Mexico. No? Again, this is the outside of Mexico City on the right, and El Bosque de Chapultepec, that it's like our central park. And you can see the contrast and the huge difference in all matters. But also, we get a very rich country, we got great landscape, and this is the other part that we work with. So constantly we are surfing between the contrast of our economy, our society, and our people. Understanding a little bit of the situation as a society, I would like to explain how how's the philosophy of the office, and we create this simple image of how we visualize a project and all the matters that surround the project in sometimes in Mexico, probably in other countries, but all these regulations, structure systems, natural context, and all these things that are surrounding a project, and that sometimes are the main participants of a project. I will read something that has to be with this philosophy that we got at the office. The invisible hand, to paraphrase Adam Smith, exists as an external factor as a condition that manifests itself in various ways. Trimming down, that's a very important thing in Mexico. Adjusting and eventually shaping works by introducing new variables to the aspirations or visions of the architect's initial idea. And probably my colleagues understand this better, but sometimes as an architect we are a very small part of a project. Sometimes the client, the society, the economic momentum, and all this stuff surrounding the projects are the things that take shape to the project. So probably as a strategy, we try to understand all these external factors and to work thinking always about these things to create probably a strong architecture that can be that can defend himself at the construction site. Well, understanding our city and understanding our philosophy, I will show you 5 projects that I think that represent what we're looking and will represent what we want to do in our country. So this first project, the name is the Donceles, is the name of the street. This project is in downtown Mexico City. And this is a project that tells the story of how we imagine continuity and how we imagine or respect it's already there. When we get this commission, we decide to be very subtle, and I think that as an architect it's not easy to leave your own ideas aside and your imagination, and we decide to swap them for a timeless and subtly initiative. So for this project we choose the anonymous way to work, and we decide just to restore the building dating from 1870. So we decide to work with the things that were there, the preexistence. I like that conception of working with the preexisting things. So the preexisting things of a structure or light, those were like the main concerns or the main concepts of the project, no? To understand an old building in a very difficult context in downtown Mexico City, we received the commission with a project that it was like this, and we started work with this, with the preexistence of the structure and light. Those were the elements to start our design. And these pictures, I think, that shows how we construct and design. It was a project that it was designed and built at the same time. It was more like an archaeology thing to do. And this is the result of this project in the architect vision, because the other part of this project, and I think that it's the important issue, was to understand what is happening to downtown Mexico City. The thing that is happening sometimes in a lot of places around the world, with the urban problem of downtowns, the ghost downtowns, that are like in these pictures, using only the base of the building, and all the upper levels are empty spaces. So the important, or the thing that I think that is important on this project was the idea of redensification and the revitalization of the use of the project. So I think that the proposal for the architectural program is really where the significant intention is found. We are working all the time at the office in urban and political manners and issues. So the idea of creating this idea of the revitalization of downtown with a mix of housing, retail, and cultural things in a building, that was like the main concern. The next project, El Rosario, it's a TOD, a transit-oriented development. We're doing several projects right now in Mexico and also in Guatemala in this matter. And the understanding that that part of how we like to work with the heritage of our culture. El Rosario, it's a more present heritage. It's an urban bad heritage that we got right now, and the project starts with a thesis of how we understand or how we want to fix or how to work with existing infrastructure in order to get new land in Mexico City. That obviously, like in New York, we got the problem of no more efficient location sites, and the idea is to bring these places to get more space. So this is Mexico City. This like a drop shape. That's the city, and all the gray areas around. This is the Zona Metropolitana del Valle de México. It's the metropolitan area surrounding Mexico City, but it's also part of the city, not in a political way, but in daily basis. To understand what we are dealing with, Mexico City got only 9 million people living and paying taxes, but we got 11 millions living and sleeping outside Mexico City, but using our city. So we are subsidizing these 11 million guys that only use the city, but they don't actually live there or pay taxes there. And the problem is that we got a floating population of almost 3 million that are using our infrastructure. So what we're trying to do is to bring back these people. Obviously, these people live outside the city for an economic issue. And what we would like to do is to bring back these people to places with the public transportation infrastructure that it's already there. And El Rosario, it's an example of what we are doing and trying to do. It's one of them, and these are the 47 TODs that we got already built in Mexico City, but with the idea of sorry, I didn't explain the TOD. The TOD concept, probably for some of you is familiar, but if you don't know what it's a TOD, the idea of a TOD, a transit-oriented development, is it's a place where you can have in a 15 minutes radius everything you need for your daily basis needs. Leisure, culture, public transportation, commodities, retail, and all what you will need in order to avoid private transportation trips. So understanding the TOD and the capacity to move through the existing lines of subway, in this picture you can imagine that the city could be connected by a walking distance or a 15 minutes radius by the subway lines that are already there. The problem with these places is that this is what you got outside the subway. We got a great transportation system, in a subway transportation system, but our problem is that we don't have the outside transportation. I mean, buses or the other transportation systems are not good. So when you get out of the subway, you will find this. This is what we call paraderos, CETRAMs, that are bus terminals for all kind of transportation systems. And we are building on those places. These are 5 projects that we are, this is Azteca that is already built. El Rosario, that is the one that I'm talking about. We are constructing this one that is Cuatro Caminos, and we are designing Chapultepec and Indios Verdes. So, like I said at the beginning, this is a project that it's part of a huge master plan that it's obviously not our master plan. It's a master plan from the city, and we are willing to help with the small examples. Understanding the huge picture of the city, El Rosario, it's the epicenter of this TOD. It's only a building, and this is the epicenter. This is our building, and this is the idea of a TOD. No, the mix of a pedestrian or a biker, and all the things that you can get in a 15 minutes radius. So, talking about the building, the idea was to understand something very simple. This building, it's not a private or a public building, it's a mix of that. It's a public-private investment where the government only puts the land, and the private sector needs to invest in the building, and he get a concession of 30 or 40 years to explode the retail or the income from transportation. So at the end of the day, for us, we get several clients at the same time. We need to deal with the government, with the private, and with the tenant. And that's probably the most difficult part when you are designing a building for tenants that you don't know. So you need to imagine how to deal with that. And I like to imagine this kind of thing as jazz players do when they improvise. No, they start to jam and they create music on the way. So I treat these kind of future clients or tenants as that. No, so the building needs to understand that, and it's a very flexible structure. It's a very simple building that. Sorry about that. These are pictures of how we design the structure and how we provide a project that doesn't need the architect inside to be like was designed. This is the final result of the project, and you can see that it's very simple. It's a gesture of the structure. We like to use local materials. We like to use local engineers and all that stuff to represent what we are, right? It's a very simple building. We got natural ventilation, natural lighting, and at the end of the day, we try to respond to the project or to the problem with a very simple gesture. And to understand how we imagine simple buildings for a simple economy and a simple society sometimes. In contrast with these two projects, I will show you another kind of project. This is a private project for an equestrian center near to Mexico City. And obviously this will be a radical change and contrast with the previous two. Now I can talk about this beautiful landscape that we got in Mexico City, the beautiful materials and other things that are more friendly as an architect. This project emerged as the result of an idea of a client who wanted to live in close contact with his horses. I think that it was a strange petition because sometimes people ask for barn stables or horses facilities outside the houses, but this client was wanting to have a special contact with the animals, and the idea of that, and also my idea of working with the place, with the site, to reduce the impact of the architecture on the site. We decide to work with the topography, with the land, and generating spaces in that concept. Sometimes I like the idea of have architecture emerge when you are dealing with the site, with the topography, and you create the architecture as the result of that. So those, I think, were the two concepts for this project, to avoid the big scale on a place like this, and to create architecture with the topography. Again, sometimes clients, when they're dreaming about their home, they or probably it's just in Mexico, but they are changing all the time. They ask you for a bigger kitchen, another room, or they erase rooms or places in the process. So we decide to again use a structure, a flexible structure that allows us to get bigger or smaller in the design process. The idea was to use regional materials like wood, and again we decided to create a structure that it was very simple, and as you can see in the pictures, this is the very simple gesture of a section creates the repetition of this section is the origin of the enclosure, and that's how we create spaces doing that. We start to get involved in structure designs with this project because we don't have in Mexico City a lot of wood structures, and our influence came from the States, but I like to use wood more like the Japanese does, without steel, using more joints than steel frames. So at the end of the day, I think that again, the simple gesture of a structure creates the space. And on the outside of this project, we use a lot of vegetation or terrain designs. That it's also a thing that I like to imagine, of how create spaces, just like using again the topography design or expression. This, this, these pictures will show the interaction with the vegetation that I think that always plays an important role in my projects. And in this case, I attempt to convert a large part of the architecture into landscape elements. So, like I was saying, the architecture plays with the topography and with this, I don't know how to say it, but this artificial landscape that we create trying to emulate the natural landscape. So with this stone and wood structures, we try to imagine spaces created by vegetation, like emulating what you experience when you are in the forest. These are pictures of the main building that it's a very simple structure. And I think that with these images you can see the idea of how we try to avoid the scale of the project. Well, to avoid a huge scale in the site. You can see the structure, the repetition that creates the spaces, and how we love to work with these negative and positive design taking shape from the site. You know, the imagining different layers for this vegetation. And like I was saying in the beginning, the idea of these raw materials, the concrete, the wood, stone, the simplicity of elements. And again, like I was saying in the first project, the persistence of light and other themes that I think that are always in my projects. This is interior and the experience of this wood structure. The idea again of light. And this is the last project, and we already see the persistence of a building, the city, a private project, and this is a mix of that. This is a simple hydroponic plant in León, Guanajuato. And I think that this project represents what we are doing or trying to do in small spaces, private spaces. And this project was a commission from a client that was willing to create a nice space for his people, for the people that worked in this plant. So it was like an exploration of people and the landscape of this place. At the end of the day, I was saying that we got great landscapes, and this is a landscape that it's industrialized, but it's great. And the program is very simple. It's an hydroponic plant, like I already said, and firms, corporate offices. Something simple that it's frequently approached with any enthusiasm, and most often leads to spaces of employees that are monotonous and sad. So the idea was to avoid this and to create a more personal office space. And this is the interior of the office. This is like a gathering place where all the people from the office can have interaction with each other. And the idea was to have this simple space that it's, again, trying to work with light, with the vegetation that I think that are constant things that I like to approach in architecture. Again, I think simple materials, raw materials sometimes, local materials. And again, this is like an architecture that tried to express things. No, I like to imagine that the people that use or live at my projects will experience things. No, this experience of light, of color, or the atmospheres that you sometimes create with these spaces. And I think that that's all. Thank you very much.